In Webster Groves, you can walk down one block and go from an 1880s frame Victorian on a double lot to a prairie style Craftsman with the original tile work to a 1920s Tudor with a slate roof and beautiful glass windows, all in the same neighborhood, all under the same set of tree canopies. That doesn't happen everywhere. That doesn't happen anywhere in St. Louis the way it happens in Webster Groves. If you're thinking about buying a historic home in the city, this video is for you. I'm going to walk you through the architecture, the neighborhoods, the market data, and because nobody else is talking about this clearly, exactly what the Historic Preservation Commission means when you buy, not after. I'm Cheryl Carosone, Realtor with Campbell House and Home. I've helped buyers get into historic Webster Groves homes, and I want you to go in with your eyes wide open. Let's get into it. Webster Groves is one of those communities that does not need to borrow character from somewhere else. It has its own. It was developed over roughly a century, starting in the 1860s and running through the 1960s. And because of that layered development timeline, the architecture is genuinely varied. But here's what matters from a real estate perspective: that variety is not random, it is neighborhood specific. And when you understand which neighborhoods were developed in which era, you can actually shop by style instead of just hoping you stumble onto the right house. That's what I give to you today, a map of architecture by neighborhood so you know exactly where to focus your search. And then we'll talk market numbers because they matter. Webster Groves is competitive. As early as 2026, homes were pending in just as few as 11 days in some areas. If you are not prepared to move, you will miss out on this one. Let's start at the beginning. Literally, the oldest residential pockets in Webster Groves trace back to the 1860s. We are talking Italianate homes, Greek Revival examples. Rare, but they exist. One documented example is the Piers Griffith home, built in 1867. These are collector properties. When one comes on the market, it moves. As you move into the 1880s, particularly in the Northwest Webster area, you find what historians describe as a simple frame Victorian construction. These are older homes, often on larger lots than what was built later, with a different footprint and more land. Now, in this era, most buyers are chasing. This is where Webster Groves gets its reputation. The styles you find in the central Webster, Old Webster, and Webster Park areas include things like Queen Anne Victorians, Craftsman bungalows, prairie influenced designs, American four squares, Tudor revivals, and Victoria vernacular and Spanish colonial revival. As you get into the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, the palette shifts towards a colonial revival and ranch layouts. These homes are still old by most standards, but they sit outside the core historic period and generally carry fewer preservation considerations. If you want the neighborhood character without the complexity of the designed designated historic property, this tier can be as practical as the middle ground. Now let's talk geography. Where do these styles actually live? Webster Park. If you want the most architecturally dramatic properties, start here. Webster Park has a high concentration of Queen Anne and Tudor Revival homes, larger, more ornate, unestablished streets with mature, beautiful tree canopies. These are the statement properties. They are also typically priced to match. Old Webster and Central Webster are a little bit more dense clusters of the 19th and early 20th centuries across multiple styles. This is where you find the Craftsman bungalows, the four squares, the prairie influenced designs all mixed together, walkable to the commercial district. Strong demand, low inventory. West Webster. Older frame Victorian homes from the 1880s on larger lots, less dense development. If lot size matters to you, take a look at these. Terroir and mid-century pockets. These are distributed throughout the city, but tend to be more common in the areas developed post-World War II. Good bones, more renovation flexibility, typically fewer preservation hoops. My advice: before you start driving neighborhoods, tell me which architectural area appeals to you most. I can narrow down the search immediately instead of having you spend weekends on open houses that just aren't the right fit. Let's talk numbers, and I want to be upfront about something before I do. The data I'm sharing comes from Redfin, Zillow, and Realtor.com, not the MLS. Numbers can vary depending on the time period. So if you want a current picture for a specific property or price range, you'll need the MLS data, and I can pull that directly for you. But let's talk a little bit more about what we find. As of March 2026, the median sale price is $424,000. That's up 14.6% year over year, and the average days on market are 31. According to Zillow, it's a little bit more than that. The average home price is 443,000, up 3.8% prior over the year. And active inventory is about 39 homes. According to realtor.com, approximately 50 active listings. Median days on market are around 37 days. Here's the directional story across all of those sources. It means low inventory, rising prices, and homes moving quickly on well-priced listings. The gap between the portals is partly methodology and partly timing, but none of them are telling a slow market story. For buyers, this means two things. One, get pre-approved before you start seriously shopping. And two, when the right house comes on the market, you do not have days to think about it. You have hours. The buyers will lose out in Webster Groves are almost always the ones who needed one more day. This is the part of the Webster Groves story that trips people up. And I want to be really clear about what it is so that there's no confusion where you often fall in love with a property, not before. Webster Groves has a historic preservation commission. It operates under Chapter 52 of the Webster Groves City Code. For properties within the landmarks or historic districts, design guidelines govern exterior changes. We're talking things like windows, doors, sliding materials, lighting fixtures, porch configurations. The review process exists to ensure that exterior changes are consistent with the property's historic architectural character. That's the intent. But in practical terms, if you buy a designated historic property and you want to replace the windows with vinyl or change the siding or modify the porch, those changes may need to go through a review process. It's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it is information you want to know before you make an offer, not after you close. Now, here's something that may also matter. Not every older home in Webster Groves is formally designated. The framework applies specifically to designated landmarks and properties within the historic districts. A home that is 100 years old and architecturally interesting can still sit completely outside of that framework, giving you total flexibility for updates subject only to zoning and building codes. Understanding which category a specific property falls into is part of the due diligence that I walk my buyers through. Before you get emotionally attached to a particular house, we confirm its design status. That shapes what your renovation plans realistically look like. And here's the flip side, because there is one. The preservation framework is actually a selling point for many buyers. If you want a historic home that is going to look the same 20 years ago as it does today, The protected areas of Webster Groves give you that guarantee. That consistency is a real value driver. Research consistently identifies historic character as a long term factor in established residential communities. So it's not just a constraint. For the right buyer, it's a feature. Let me give you the three mistakes I see buyers make in this market. Mistake number one is assuming all old homes are the same. They are not. A Craftsman bungalow and an American Foursquare are completely different maintenance profiles, renovation considerations, and architectural constraints. Know what style you are buying before you fall in love. Mistake number two, skipping the preservation status check. I've seen buyers get surprised by this after going under contract. Confirm the designation status early. If the house is in a historic district and you want to gut the exterior, that conversation needs to happen before you are emotionally invested. Mistake number three is waiting. In a market where well priced homes are going pending in under 2 weeks, waiting to get a pre approval or waiting to schedule the showing is a strategy for watching the house you wanted appear as pending in Zillow alerts. Get your financing lined up first, then shop. Webster Groves is one of the most architecturally distinctive communities in the St. Louis metro area. It is also a market where the details matter more than most. Knowing the difference between a designated historic property and simply an old one, knowing which neighborhood carries which styles, knowing how to put an offer together that is competitive in this low inventory environment is my specialty. That's exactly what I help my buyers get right from the start. If you are thinking about buying in Webster Groves, let's talk. I can walk you through current listings, pull MLS data on any price range you're targeting, explain what the preservation framework means for any specific property you're considering, and help you put together an offer that has a real shot. Call or text me or drop a comment below with your biggest question and I'll answer it. I'm Cheryl Carosone with Campbell House and Home. Thanks for watching.